In this video, we're going to look at how you can make the most of your mouse wheel in ARCHICAD. If you don't have a standard wheel mouse, it's something you really should consider because it does so much in ARCHICAD very quickly and very easily. There's a number of things it does do, and we're going to look at them individually here to show how to make the most of the hardware. So the first thing we think of with a mouse wheel is zoom, and it's true if you put the mouse on the screen in a view, if you scroll forwards it zooms in, if you scroll backwards it zooms out. You may have software on your operating system that changes in to out and vice versa, but essentially scroll one way it will zoom in, scroll the opposite way it will zoom out. But even with that, there are some controls. So to start with, I'm going to look at the default zoom, which is 100%. If I just scroll the mouse wheel, it steps, in this case, in 20%. And it'll add 20%, and it'll add 20% for each notch of the zoom that I do. If I go backwards, it reduces by 20, reduces by 20, reduces by 20. However, we can also control that. So if we want to move in slower steps, slower increments, on a Mac I can hold the command key, on Windows the control key, and basically this time when I step forwards it goes by 10% and back again. If I want to move faster, Mac or Windows, doesn't matter, I can hold Shift and it goes in 40% steps. So these extra modifiers really help when it comes to navigating complicated or detailed projects. We can move quickly to an area and then we can control finely exactly where we go. If I actually follow the instructions here, what I have to do is zoom backwards to see further instructions. So I want to move quickly, I'm going to hold Shift and just scroll the mouse wheel backwards. And eventually more details come on screen. So this next thing is again using the mouse to help us here. And that's basically if we point towards something, so if I go for the centre of the O and zoom forwards, the focus of the zoom is where the mouse is. So I'll go back out again. So in this case, what I need to do is it's telling me to put the mouse down at the origin, zoom in, and the focus becomes that area. And if I keep going, eventually I get further instructions. And these are telling me to double click the mouse wheel. This is another function that the mouse wheel performs. So if I double click, I get what's called, in ARCHICAD terms, a fit-in window. So to use AutoCAD terms, that's zoom extents. But basically, it takes everything that's visible in that view and fits it into the window. So it doesn't matter where I am. If I go for the D and zoom in, quick fire, double click, it does a fit-in window. Even if I'm zoomed the whole way out, so there's just a tiny little dot, anywhere on screen, double click, it fits in window. So the next thing is to move to the end of the spline. So we zoom in here, and there's a few more instructions. And basically what it's telling me is if I hold the mouse wheel, as I'm doing right now, we get pan. So I can put the mouse up here, click the wheel, scroll down, just move the mouse down, and that pans down. Pan, and we can move into the centre of the window. So it's literally just click and move around. So to summarise these controls so far, if we scroll forwards, we zoom in, scroll backwards, we zoom out. We can use the modifier keys to increase or decrease that speed. We can double click to fit in window, and we can hold the wheel to give pan. So that applies to all 2D and 3D documents, and then there's one extra control. So let's go to 3D, and again we can hold down to pan, we can zoom in, we can zoom out, and we can double click and that fits in window. But on top of all of that, if I hold down the Shift key, doesn't matter if it's Windows or Mac, if I now hold down the mouse wheel, rather than pan, we get orbit. So I can actually spin that 3D model. We can come around, we can zoom backwards, we can double click, we can hold Shift, orbit around again, and it's just a very quick way to navigate. Without using the Shift key for orbit, we would have to use the orbit command down here, or press the O key, and that means you have to click in and click out to be able to go back to edit mode. Whereas holding Shift, click the wheel, move it around, let go, and straight away you can edit. So it's a much, much quicker way to work.